Okay. YouTube's part is the live. Let's see if I can get this to go live. Come on, LinkedIn, do what I want. Okay, delay. Excellent. Thinks I am live. Let's give some time to distract. Play with the pen. Slide pen. Some pen penning time. Tap on this book. Got the book. Oh, I got my paper. Paper's good. I'm good. Take another last sip of water. Once again, there's only one current viewer. If you are the current viewer, if that's not me, I apologize. That in the beginning of stream, I always like to dilly dally a little bit, give people time to get on stream. Uh, okay, that's probably a good enough dilly dally. Welcome, everybody. Hi, boys and girls, children of all ages, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get ready to rumble. That's right. It is, unfortunately for you all, the pro wrestling episode. We got a lot to talk about. I think I'm going to go long. I still say an hour is not enough time to find out if I could be put in the NWO. What's the NWO? You say, see, there's so many questions, and that's why there is only one question this episode, because we're gonna ramble a lot. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves. But oh, we have to point out early in the chat, allegedly, according to the rules, that I'm wearing a Cody Rhodes t-shirt, which I can't see once again with the tape delay. I can't see. Hopefully that was in shot. But once again, shout out to the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, who is not in the NWO. Cody Rhodes is a modern day wrestler. He's wrestling in WWE. His dad might have been in the NWO. We might get that in a minute. But once again, I feel like that kind of brings us to the emotional state. So to really understand why I, Jay Bossert, misalignment specialist, that was actually good in the shot. Perfect shot, putting the shirt in the shot. Jay, delayed. Yeah. So to understand that, we can go to some modern times. Cody Rhodes is a modern day wrestler, and he has some friends in the rival promotion. It happens a lot. So I was a big fan of the Elite, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, Cody Rhodes, all those crew, modern day wrestling, big fans. And Cody got sad and left. He took his ball and went home to WWE. So, but I'm still a fan of Cody, and I'm still a fan of the Young Bucks, and that's how it was back in the day. So back when Jay was a wee lad, maybe elementary school to middle school Jay, watching the pro wrestling, he was a humongous fan of professional wrestler Shawn Michaels, one of the greatest of all time. The showstopper. Cody Rhodes was not ever in the NWO. AJ, you're gonna be wrong. We have YouTube. We're not gonna. Yeah. Okay. Correct as well. Those are all fair things to distractify me with in the chat. I agree with half of all of them, or all of half of them. What was I saying? Yes, Shawn Michaels, best ever, obviously. And he was real life friends back before there was like AI telling us all the information that we need to know, and we don't have to think for ourselves. We could just use AI. When I was a kid, you didn't have to think for yourself either. You could use the pro wrestling dirt sheets. You could use like the real life names. So it was really cool. I remember being like elementary school age and just like find out that like, oh, Diesel used to be like Oz over in WCW, or like Scott Hall used to be the Diamond Stud, or whatever, and just these different people were different characters in these different organizations. And lo and behold, even though there are different characters, sometimes they would be played by the same actor, professional wrestler. This is great. And, this was something that I would really focus on, that different individuals would be playing these different wrestlers. And a lot of times it'd be cool to know their real name, because not everyone would, people would be talking about like so and this and that. And you'd be like, oh, you mean this name? And people are like, what are you talking about? That's so and so, the wrestler who goes by so and so on TV. And be like, yeah, well, their real name is so and so, or whatever. Once again, I do have an unfortunate encyclopedia when it comes to earlier pro wrestling names, but like a lot like they stopped doing the real name thing. But the inside, the dirt sheets, the fact that my personal hero at the time, Shawn Michaels, was friends. Yeah, they like not like on TV they would play the enemy sometimes, but Razor Ramon, Diesel, 1, 2, 3 Kid, uh. I think he was still Hunter Hearst Helmsley at the time. He wasn't Triple H, but Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Like these five dudes, they would hang out behind the scenes. They'd call themselves the Click. And that was like the coolest thing ever. There'd be like this real life connection where these performers would hang out, would have a good time together. And I thought that was great. So even though I think it's a parasocial relationship that we call it too. When we watch people on the TV and we feel a certain way about them, we relate to the art that they're doing. Well, if I relate to Sean's art and those are Sean's friends, they're basically all my friends too. So once again, I was basically an honorary member of the Clique in middle school. I had some Shawn Michaels merch. I had, the hat. I had a shirt. Whatever. But then, we heard that there was rumors that two members of the Clique were gonna leave. Was it still WWF, WWE? Once again, tomato, tomato, potato, potato. Get the F out, I think was the slogan that they used during the Attitude Era. So I don't think they left yet. I think it was still WWF. Whatever. Not important. So two members of this real life like grouper or friends of people were gonna go to the other side of things. So yeah, as a nerd, like what was gonna happen. Like, yeah, I heard Diesel, heard Razor Ramon. They're gonna jump ship. They're gonna leave the company. I don't think we called it jump ship back then as a kid. I think that's revisionist history. And if I try to reset this, it's gonna be bad. It says previously live. Hopefully I didn't break the internet. Yeah, okay, cool. So that's gonna be very distracting for me. What was it saying? Oh yeah, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. We're gonna leave the WWF, we're gonna call it, and go to WCW. At the time, there was a restructuring of things. This was not the WWE that we know today. Well, it is. It's the same company. WWF, for those who don't know, is WWE. Same company. They changed the name. So WWE right now is a bajillion dollars. They went public. They have a lot of the monies. But back in the day, in the 90s, there was a little bit of a lull in pro wrestling. The 80s are booming in the 80s, pro wrestling. I'm not going to be able to say anything in the chat, by the way. So please, guys, talk amongst yourselves. Listen to me ramble for another 54 minutes. If I try to fix it, it will unfix it. By the way, much apologies. We'll power through. Definitely going to power through. So yeah, there was the boom of the 80s pro wrestling. The Hulk Hogan was a big part of that. We're definitely gonna get to that man in a second. But yeah, the 90s kind of lulled. People didn't want to spend so much money. I kind of blame the internet too. Like, like you could be able to download movies, pay-per-views. Like, why go out to the big pay-per-view? Why go pay money to even like buy it? They were saying like the pay-per-view buys were down. Big Daddy Cool, Diesel, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Kevin Nash. They said he was one of the worst champions because of the pay-per-view buy rates. I had an illegal cable box as a kid. A lot of kids did in my class. You know what I'm saying? That was a thing that was going around back then. That people weren't paying for pay-per-views. We had the box. So I'm sorry, Kevin Nash. We're gonna get to the NWO in a second. He was in it. Because yes, that's the point of the beginning of the story. So once again, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, the real names now, real names of Razor Ramon and Diesel wanted to leave the WWF back then for money reasons. I think Kev, he had a baby on the way, if I remember correctly. And Scott, more money, like, they weren't getting paid enough. They were looking to cut contracts here. Kevin Nash was champion at the time. He had championship material, and you're kind of holding the company, like that crew of friends, holding the company in the back. So yeah, they left over to WCW. And that is when the NWO angle really started. There was talks before the scenes here, I guess, of Eric Bischoff, who was head booker at the time, or he might have been an executive vice president at the time. Definitely it's Ted Turner's company and Ted Turner's money. But Easy E's doing a big booking behind the scenes. Once again, please feel free to disagree, agree with me. I can't see the comments anymore. Everything's ruined. Okay, cool. So, Kevin Nash, which is Diesel in WWF, goes over. Really tall dude. I forgot his height. He looks 7 foot-ish, whatever. Tall man. Scott Hall's not a short person either. What, 6'4", 6'6"? He's definitely taller than me, but looks shorter in comparison. So these two big dudes, they show up, And this is back when we're talking commentary. My producer, Bradley Bates, wanted me to talk about how great JR and the King were in commentary. Top 5, top 10 of all time. We don't have time to rank them because it's the NWO episode. And we already have to get into like 17 to 24 other mini categories to get to the major category. Really good though. But over in WCW now, we have Tony Schiavone on color commentary. He was one of the once again goats of all time, and Eric Bischoff. You know, before the Vince McMahon, evil Vince McMahon character, Vince was over in WWF doing color commentary, and even though he was actually booking, which booking for those who don't know is writing the script, is a script writing, but for pro wrestling. Even though like no one's controlling the physics in the ring, like these are definitely professional athletes, actors, whatever, doing their thing. But there's certain maybe key moments that are like, all right, well, this needs to happen to make the overall arching story make sense. So Vince McMahon was very famous for doing a lot of his booking with a very tight, organized group over here, and Eric Bischoff was definitely doing it with his group over here. So these guys, my friends in air quotes, once again, parasocial relationship here. Me watching them, relating to all their things, all of what they're doing. They're my buddies. They're jumping ship, which I don't think I called it that back then, but they did. So the part of the storyline here, which they might have borrowed from some New Japan stuff as well. We're not New Japan once again throwing it back. Bullet Club. I don't know if that's the wrong sleeve. Cody Rhodes in the Bullet Club. New Japan borrowed back the NWO angle that was borrowed from New Japan. Tomato, potato, doesn't matter anymore. But the angle in pro wrestling at the time, which this is really part of the Attitude Era. Once again, in the 90s and definitely the late 90s and into the early 2000s, they're trying to get the edge back. People were not watching wrestling anymore. They're watching Jackass on MTV. They're watching like these adult themed cartoons and whatnot. They were not watching the superhero aspect of pro wrestling. Pro wrestling was kind of like real life superheroes. It was like comic books come to life, good guy versus bad guy. And people didn't want that anymore. I think reality TV, Big Brother, Survivor, what else was happening at that time? The Apprentice with Donald Trump. Okay. There was things happening at the time that was different than that vibe. So I think WCW wanted to blur those lines a little bit. They never said these guys are coming from the competition. They're coming from the WWF. But they got Scott Hall. Do I have a toothpick over here? Oh, I just have floss. My dental hygiene is apparently lacking for this bit. But he did the famous toothpick. You know where I can't do it right. He's just basically doing a Scarface. He's you know who we are, you know where we come from. I messed it up. But he does his thing, which is great. I think they only got away with it. It's really weird, the lawsuit too. Once again, like the likenesses, WWF tried suing WCW for using the likenesses because that's actually not how Scott Hall hacks in real life. He's doing the character Razor Ramon. But Razor Ramon's a Scarface ripoff. Whatever. There's a lawsuit at some point. We're not even going to get into that because we have to get to the list we're ignoring. So once again, that was the angle. So even though one of the writers of the angle, but he did it really well. Once again, shout out Eric Bischoff. I think he started off as an underpants model, turned color commentator, backstage guy, and really just climbed his way up the ladder. Very good looking man too. Once again, I could see the underpants model aspect of it. Good for him. But the personality wise and just really good stage presence and be able to act, I'm gonna have to go back once again in the comments. Any people that are watching, it locked up a little bit, so I'm gonna have to talk to y'all later. But please interact amongst yourselves, the 5 current viewers we have, and continue for the next at least 50 minutes of this going into it because we're really gonna get to the bottom of this. So. But once again, Eric Bischoff, Easy E, former underpants model, real life, head honcho, one of like definitely the corporate members of this organization, but also having a stage presence. He's doing the color commentary. If we don't know what that is, we should call this episode "Mansplaining Pro Wrestling" and only have him. No, we should not do that. Sorry, silly joke, bad idea. Yeah, so he was on the telly and he's on the headset. Do we have a headset close by? We do. Over there. Okay. We're getting up for a second. We're only knocking over the wires. So this is good here. Um, it would have been better if we planned it once again. This is how we go over. Gotta play things better. Okay. So really to knock the point home, like they didn't once if you have the dirt sheets, if you ever understand or you watch the credits of things, I have a habit of watching credits to like everything. Even as a small child, maybe it's a little bit of OCD. Like the movie's not over until the credits are over. Whatever. So in the credits of these pro wrestling pay-per-views, they would have Eric Bischoff's name as one of the executive producers. Like I would know, but on TV, he's here and he's talking pro wrestling. There's a match happening in the ring. I will remember what match it was at 2, 3 in the morning. You could look it up. It is important, but it's not important. It's like poor dude's in the ring, like because they planned Scott Hall coming to interrupt. So once again, knocked off the headphones, which is good because I can hear myself better now. I was probably screaming at you guys. Sorry about that. And that's the angle. It's like Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, the guys from WWF. They call them the outsiders. They do the angle where they call them outsiders with a implication that they're from the competition. So they're not. They're kind of like it's very weird. We're blurring the lines of reality here. Let's get to the actual question, which is, can I be in the NWO? And we once again we have a mighty list of people that have been in the NWO and timeline. So the only thing I think that's fair for the next 30 minutes or so to find out if I could be in the NWO is we, to the best of our abilities, go through the list and see who else was in the NWO and why and how well do I think personally on a personal level. Once again, it's my podcast. On the next episode, I'm gonna change this to say on the next episode because I finally changed the name of the stream to say episode again. So that was nice. That was good to fix that finally. Okay, so number one on the timeline, according to Wikipedia, of in the NWO, Scott Hall. Once again, top 5 member of the NWO. There would be no NWO without Scott Hall. R.I.P. Scott Hall. I can't say enough nice things about this man. He definitely helped me get through some dark times. I know it's weird. You hear some things about some people, some celebrities, and you're like, well, they had some dark times, and that's unfortunately a certain things would follow them, and you would hear things and be sad. But on the lighter side of things, I think maybe people that have dark times, they put smiles on people's faces that are also having dark times. So Scott Hall, is there a ranking system here? I'm just gonna put a big old check mark next to his name. Once again, he could have been the in facto leader of the NWO. I think Wikipedia put black or bold next to the leaders here, so anyone that's in a darker color was allegedly leading for a little bit. Enough so where I could see it through the paper. So that's good. Once again, if you are doing a LinkedIn Live, always see through the paper. Helps with everything. So good. Scott Hall deserved to be there. He should be in the NWO. That's good. He's in my NWO. I'll bring him back from the dead. There will be a necromancy involved. He's coming back. Or I don't want to say like if his family gives permission for AI. That's a weird thing. I just want to think in this theoretical reality, we're just going to bring him back and he'll be fine. So we're going to bring Scott Hall back. He's fine. Kevin Nash. Once again, Big Sexy. Yeah, Kevin Nash. That's his nickname. I didn't want to. Okay. Kevin Nash, once again, there's a reason he's big and bold over here on the list. He's definitely one of the leaders of the NWO for a reason. He was booking WCW later in life. I think, once again, we should give Kevin Nash's flowers somehow. I know he's probably watching episode 0008 of On the Next Episode with Jay Bossert. He's catching up and watching all the episodes, I'm sure. Huge fan of me is he, I'm sure. And I have him. Of course, watching some of his podcasts is some of the political stuff we don't always see eye to eye with, but he's a funny man, and he speaks his mind. We're going to put a check mark next to Kevin Nash. Okay. Oh, I saw the name. All right. We're a good 20 minutes in, and now we have to talk about, or 19 minutes in, now we have to talk about someone that we may or may not want to talk about, Hulk Hogan. I know. Or maybe you're fans. Once again, this this thing locked up over here, and I can't see the comments. But let me know in the comments how you feel about Hulk Hogan. Yay, nay, hey, and I will read it eventually today when I will rewatch my own stream like a stan and click on the comments and interact. And this is good. Good times. So Hulk Hogan, I was never a fan of growing up. I was born in '83. I'm not going to give you my exact birth date, social security number, first concert I've been to on this stream, but maybe we'll get to it. Maybe we'll get to it later. Who knows? We got a lot of people to talk about. So the whole take your vitamins, America, the pythons, the whole thing that he was doing before this, I just hate. It was like my least favorite wrestler. It seemed like, and maybe he would get into these other situations with wrestlers I would like more. I like the bad guys. They would feed Hogan, and Hogan would just win, and it's just whatever. So I remember the Bass at the Beach. There was an episode, or not episode, a pay-per-view, which I was watching illegally on my illegal cable box as it was, as poor WCW wasn't getting their buy rates as well. Maybe that's part of the problem for all of this. Once again, there is a financial backlash to some of these occurrences that were happening in society. But there's a 2-on-3 planned, okay? So Hall and Nash, my boys, are going to face WCW, the outsiders. They have a third man. We don't know who it is. And, at some point, people are down. I think Macho Man's in the ring. I love Macho. We're going to get to him in a little bit, I think. And apparently, everybody, we're going long. Yeah. Okay. So, everyone's down, and Hulk Hogan's running the ring. And I remember even hearing, like, Bobby Heenan going, like, oh, whose side is he on? And that's perfect heel Brain Heenan, one of the best on the headset that I threw. The Brain had one of these, and we could have a Bobby the Brain Heenan appreciation episode and still go along with that. We'll just put it that way. So I thought that was like a heel Brain move. I didn't think in my wildest of dreams that Hulk Hogan, the wrestler that I did not like on a personal level, like an anti-parasocial relationship. There's something about him I don't like Hogan. Never liked Hogan. He turned heel and joined with my guys, Hall and Nash, and made the NWO. And then even as a child, this was what, 96? I was born in 83, maybe, yeah, math, at that age. So yeah, I remember even then, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to like Hogan now for a little bit. I had to. Once again, I'm gonna put a crooked face next to it. And I understand I'm in the now. I think to have that kind of emotional impact and have that time where we're still talking about it at a history now, the heel turn. Who else did WCW have? Sting? They had Sting as like someone who would never turn bad guy, who was always a baby face that they call a good guy wrestler. So they had Sting, who they could have turned bad, and it would have, for the WCW fans, been emotionally impactful. Like, OMG, Sting, the surfer, like the coolest guy in the world. He turned bad and joined up with the people from the other side there. That would have been great. I don't think it would have had the global impact of having Hogan. I appreciate Hulk Hogan. I just still not a fan. But there's a reason he's one of the leaders. Once again, out of all these names, which we are unfortunately, I think, going to because of the rules I made, we're gonna get to him. Ted DiBiase's next. That's right. Some people forget he was in the NWO. Not I, because they were doing an angle in the beginning that, like, how does they have the monies to pay the Hall and the Nash and the Hogans? Who? Little New Day for you. Shout out to the New Day. Are they in AEW yet? No? Another month or so? Okay, cool. Yeah, so there were like the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase was a guy in the 80s, and his gimmick, I think it was Vince McMahon kind of wanting to, like, through proxy, give Ted DiBiase money and just act rich. And it's fun. He would stuff dollar bills in people's mouths. Right. Yeah, I guess that angle did not age well. Whatever. His son did something, so we can't talk about everyone's backstories for too much. But in the wrestling lore, Ted DiBiase, in the WCW there, was still rich because he, of course, why would he not be? That's his gimmick, and he was secretly in charge of the NWO. I liked it. I didn't love it. All right, I liked Ted DiBiase. I liked Money Inc. Once again, I liked a lot of heel wrestlers, heel to the bad guys. So this guy here, Jay Bossert, on the next episode, really loved the bad guy wrestlers growing up, and I liked Ted DiBiase as um like this benefactor, I guess they would call it. But they also kind of tried to make it as like he's the secret leader. He has the money, and even the internet now couldn't even put black next to his name. Look at that. Yeah, see that? Green for a reason. I want to put a dash next to his name for now. Once again, I don't know what any of these symbols are going to mean later, but right now there's a dash next to his name, and we're going to acknowledge the fact that he was in it. If they could have did something else, maybe made him. I mean, once again, they made a lot of names over time. It's just something we're going to get into. I can't see why I haven't been in the NWO yet, like everybody else has been in it. Speaking of which, the Big Show is what they say here, because in WWF, eventually he was also in it, but in the WCW version, it's the Giant. So they did this whole gimmick, once again, not in real life, but the famous wrestler Andre the Giant had a son who was obviously the Giant or the Big Show, because they're both tall. They're related because they're tall, is the thing that they were doing. And that was a whole thing too. I think he was also initially he was feuding, or they were fighting back. That was one of like Hulk Hogan's big rivals for a little bit there. Someone got thrown off a building. There was monster trucks involved. Wrestling gets weird. All right, it does. So, yeah, but he stayed like I'm big and tall, and I'm gonna uphold WC psych, and that would happen a lot. And some of the Giant stuff in the NWO, that early like 96, 97. Oh, there's actually numbers on the bottom. 97 is what it's saying here, but I think tail end of it, yeah. So it was 96 into 97 was really good, guys. I think gotta give Paul White his flowers there. He deserved to be in the NWO. I feel more than Ted DiBiase does, and Hogan deserved to be. I don't like that Hogan is in it or was in it, but I would have to acknowledge that was probably a solid booking move. Next, NWO Sting. That for a video gamer such as myself, I think playing WCW versus the NWO, that's great. So, and the fact that longevity of like who stayed in the NWO, one of the longest here, NWO Sting, I think was more popular in Japan. Once again, I'm American. Last time I checked, and we're definitely going long. We're gonna rant about pro wrestling way too long. It's one of my topics that I tend to rant about in real life, and now we have a camera. So NWO Sting was great. I forget the name of the wrestler who was tried to portray him. They did an angle where the Sting, like the wrestler I mentioned earlier, the guy that WCW had, that was like the good guy of all time. He's never gonna turn into a bad guy. He's never gonna turn on the good guys of WCW. They were doing a tease that like the NWO was like, yeah, we got Sting. We got Sting. Sting. How's it going? Holla at your boy. And like behind the scenes, like all these pro wrestlers would hang out behind the scene sometimes anyways in real life too. So some of the dirt sheets were like, oh, yeah, Steve? Yeah, he's cool with Scott and Kev. Yeah, cool. So like maybe he will. Maybe Sting's gonna turn. But it was just some dude in Sting makeup who was a great wrestler once again. No, a solid. He wasn't great, amazing. He was a solid wrestler whose name I don't remember and was in the group the longest. But maybe if they did someone else with name recognition, I don't know. Once again, I liked the angle, but to keep that man being NWO Sting was maybe the right move. Maybe they're like, he took off his makeup. It's like, actually, I'm this other wrestler that you guys didn't even pay attention to. Might not have landed. I love the reason that turned Sting emo, though. He turned into the Crow, basically, because of that angle. So I'm going to put... I'm gonna put a Hello Kitty face next to it, basically. So found out the other day because of the internet that the reason that Hello Kitty doesn't have a mouth is so that we, in different emotional states, can look at the cat and feel what we're feeling. So if I'm happy and look at the Hello Kitty without a mouth, I'll see happiness. And if I'm feeling anxious, I'll see anxious. Like the kitty will relate to me. And that's how I want to relate to NWO Sting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Somehow math is off on this timeline because the sixth member of the NWO is named Six, and on this piece of paper, it's the seventh name. So thankfully, I proofread this piece of paper that I printed out minutes before the episode. Episode. That's Scott Waltman. That's the 1-2-3 kid from the WWE who we mentioned earlier in the stream. That's one of the real life members of the Clique. That there's Hall, there's Nash, there's Paul Levesque, who's Triple H. There, Mike Hickenbottom, if we're gonna say Shawn Michaels' name correctly. Good for him. He should have wrestled as that. Bless his heart, as they say in the South. And Sean Waltman, 6, who's the sixth member. I think, did NWO Sting get bumped up? Or does like Ted DiBiase not count because he's the lead? I forget how the math was mathing. But he was one of the best members of the NWO. And I think the way that Hogan's contract worked too, like Hogan couldn't do a lot of the TV episodes because he was busy not doing them. He didn't have to. Less is more of Hogan, which is, I agree. Less of him on TV was better. And they put Scott Waltman 6 on it. And like, I want to put a heart next to him. Like he had go away heat, and a lot of times in life, and ended up pissing people off. You got like the Marvin K. Mooney, "Will you please go home now?" heat, apparently by Dr. Seuss. That was made about that was a Nixon reference. That was not about pro wrestling, actually. Yeah. But one of the best. He went back, as you see. He went back to WWE. So he ended up yeah, he had some problems, we'll say. So he ended up only being in the beginning part of this here, and he left. He was not in it as long as he should have been. Or should have. Once again, real life stuff happens, and if he was struggling and needed to take some time away or go to the competition and on the live TV say some things that people felt a certain way about. Vincent's next. Vincent, if you don't remember him in WCW, he was Ted DiBiase's lackey there, Virgil. So imagine Virgil from old school 80s wrestling, as some of you who might know that. Does it say how many people are watching now? No, this thing is glitching out. Oh, 5. Good. Maybe 2 of you will know who Virgil/Vincent is. And Virgil in the 80s in the WWF was actually a dig to Cody Rhodes' dad, Dusty Rhodes. Real life name. I think Virgil is one of his real life names there. Is what I think. So obviously, when Virgil jumped ship over to WCW, they had to start like, "Oh, you like to play poke fun at names there? We're gonna call you Vincent after Vince McMahon, who named you Virgil." So there's a lot of I'm gonna put a dash. Once again, he's a solid dude, solid hand, as they say in the biz. There's nothing wrong with Vincent. It made sense when Ted DiBiase was the secret backer of the NWO to have Vincent in it. Long term, it didn't do much for it, but like he looked intimidating. He did the face, and once again, like the less is more is not the method that the NWO has followed. So I didn't put a sad face, but he's in it. Miss Elizabeth, once again, timeline wise, I think a lot of us forget she's before Randy Savage, who I'm pointing at maybe because I can't. Yeah, well, whatever. So Miss Elizabeth was following Hogan around and turn heel. I like that. I think Miss Elizabeth gets a bad rap. We should give her flowers. I didn't. The stuff with Randy and all even in the WWF, like that, like very abusive relationship, codependent Randy. Also, Hulk Hogan's doing his thing. It's kind of creepy. So I like Liz more than I like Hogan. So I'm gonna give her a smiley face. Maybe she should have been the third man and dropped the leg on Macho. That might have worked. Maybe that would have been the one thing. Because if Hogan was the one who dropped the leg on Savage to turn heel and make the NWO, Hall and Nash could have been like, you know what? We didn't even use a wrestler. We used a valet. We're that good. And that could have maybe helped try to get Hogan out of that third spot. All right, well, let's move on. Nick Patrick, heel referee. You know what? I liked it in the first pay per view angle. I liked it, I think, on TV sometimes. When WCW did those like sold out pay per views, I loved it in theory. As like this little kid, I'm like, this is great. They're gonna have a whole pay per view with just like my favorite wrestlers because it's only the NWO, or they're just the NWO is just gonna beat WCW wrestlers every match, or even less logical, the heel referee is gonna still let the WCW wrestlers win. The angle turned bad, but Nick Patrick and the NWO, that was a cool thing. I don't remember, like, like they had so much money, and that was maybe that was after they took out Ted DiBiase, I believe, and they put in Easy Eric Bischoff. Once again, great stage presence. That was part of what made the NWO great. If they maybe would have done that, if Eric Bischoff was the third man, that would have worked out as well. Perhaps Bash at the Beach. He just comes in and just like, you know what? It was me the whole time, Austin. Yeah, no, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna. No. Christopher Daniels appreciation some other time. Not in this. Yeah, I don't think Christopher Daniels was ever in the NWO, but Eric Bischoff was, and we're gonna put 2 hearts next to Eric Bischoff. That's great. Once again, they should have made him partially in charge. I'm gonna blacken the bar and say Easy E was in charge just as much as Hall, Nash, and Hogan was. He was in charge. They definitely made it a boo boo by not blackening his bar. Buff Bagwell. I love Buff Bagwell's stick. Maybe it's because I was younger and watching this as a wee lad. Buff Bagwell. Hopefully, everyone wants to. I'm not ignoring you guys in the chat. We froze a long time ago. I always have some kind of difficulty with everything, and it's definitely good. You know who had a lot of difficulties getting out there? Buff Bagwell. His stuff with Scott Steiner was great. His stuff with Scott Norton, I think they did some stuff in WCW was great too. I just really liked his little prancing. He did his things. He had his hats. I want to say he gets a worse rap. People, even at the time, were really kind of like naysaying to his thing. But I'm pretty sure professional dancer turned wrestler. Like he had the body and kept up with the moves and it was solid in the ring. Buff Bagwell's getting a smile. I don't know. There's a lot of great people in the NWO so far. We're going long in this episode. We're gonna have to. Who's next? Mike Wall Street. Once again, law of diminishing returns, unfortunately, was happening here. Because, like I've already pointed out before, Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, was kind of like, okay, I kind of sort of see it, it makes sense, but it didn't really fit, like, with that, like, mentality. They kind of dropped that angle of the gimmick. So it's like, well, Ted DiBiase is not actually all the money. The reason why it's working is it's actually WCW's money. It's Eric Bischoff using Ted Turner's money to fight Ted Turner on Ted Turner TV. Like, it made sense at the time. It really did. Having Mike Wall Street, who also wrestled as IRS, Money Inc. back in the 80s for anybody watching. Great tag team once again. It didn't really mesh well with NWO though. I'm gonna have to put a dash, unfortunately. As much as I was a huge fan of Money Inc., and that was one of my favorite tag teams in the 80s, I just still think that Vincent, Ted DiBiase, Mike Wall Street didn't jive as well. Bubba Rogers, who was a big boss man, was in the NWO for a sip of coffee there. That was okay. Wasn't bad. Wasn't good. It was good. Like I liked him once again more than some of the other people on the list, but we'll just get to it. He wasn't in it for that long. Scott Norton. OMG. To you all 5 current viewers, unless if that is frozen from earlier when we actually had 5 current viewers. Know who Scott Norton is? Fire and Ice there. He was doing some things. One of the best like big men of wrestling who just did what he was told and was just really good. Once again, I watched some clips later in life of some of his stuff in Japan. He went over, I guess, to do NWO Japan. There was another incarnation of the NWO, but even what he was doing, just like looking intimidating, looking like a big dude, and just like had that kind of like cool looking factor that like unfortunately too, it's not no fault of theirs. They were still doing gimmicks within a gimmick. So you got your Vincent, you know, your Ted DiBiase, your what you call it? We just said his name earlier, Mike Wall Street. Like they're doing a gimmick within a gimmick. That isn't that Michael Rotunda was his real name? Yeah. So like once again, like the ones that were doing like I'm not a wrestler, I'm my real self. I'm Scott Hall, I'm Kevin Nash. I think we're doing better if they called it like Diamond Stud and Oz again, maybe they wouldn't be doing so hot or something. So just saying. Um yeah, Scott Norton's great. We're putting a smiley face next to that one. Randy Savage. Oh yeah, gonna say his name twice. Say his name twice. Oh yeah. Some Randy Savage there. Once again, great in the NWO. His madness character that he was doing for a bit. I like that more. Once again, I'm not the biggest Hulk Hogan fan, so it's just like I wish he was the black bar. Once he was in the early angle that caused the NWO. That was Randy. Um, and maybe if the shoe was literally on the other foot, maybe if Hogan was in the ring and Randy came out and he was the third man, with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, Randy Poffo, maybe that would have been great. That would have been so beautiful if Randy was the third man. He wasn't, but I'm gonna put a smiley face next to Randy. I'm gonna try to. It looks kind of frowny. Whatever. I got to move on. Dennis Rodman. Not a professional wrestler. A professional basketball player, but he used his real name, and he was actually one of the better members of the NWO. Once again, charisma, star power, whatever that man was doing to himself at that period of time, just really transcribed well. Not the best wrestler though. If you ever seen him wrestling, you don't. Yeah, exactly. He did like a big boot of sorts. Yeah, we'll just say that. We'll give him a smile once again. Randy Savage, we're gonna have to put a smiley heart if we're gonna give Dennis Rodman just a smile. Well, you can't have that in the same page there because Randy's one of the best. Once again, Conan. I really think that's when the NWO to me started really upping its coolness factor. It was said earlier in the chat before the chat froze dramatically on my end. AJ said it that the Wolfpack was better than the NWO. I don't know what he's talking about. No, I know what he's talking about. The Viva La Raza part that Conan would really just hype up the crowd, and just the Wolfpack theme music at the time had that kind of like hip hop kind of feel that Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Conan all really just liked, and just having them come out to the ring. I almost want to put him bold too, as like for myself as one of the leaders of the Wolfpack. Maybe not. Or if not, even in the black and white incarnation of the NWO there, I think as a mouthpiece, like he was really helping to lead more than Hollywood Hogan ever was. Oh, geez. Kurt Hennig. Oh, God. Once again, this and back to back, we're gonna have the back to back names actually. So we'll do back to back here because I feel the same way about both of them. Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude. Once again, people that were in the NWO, I feel like not long enough, but really just for me, it was the coolness factor. I liked bad guy wrestlers growing up. Mr. Perfect was one of the best. He was perfect. He was the perfect wrestler. Rick Rude, ravishing Rick Rude, the thing he did with the abs. I'm going to work on my abs to hopefully do Rick Rude abs by the end of the summer. Which summer? I don't know. I'm a little behind. I have a little behind as well. I gotta work on my butt. And I gotta work on my abs, and I gotta be able to do the Rick Rude abs thing. I'll be ravishing, and I'll be perfect. So Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude once again, and Conan too. These are great members of the NWO, and if I ever make it to be in the NWO, I would be a hashtag blessed to be in the same group that had Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Conan, Hall, Nash. This is what I'm talking about. Some parts of the group, they really take hold here and really just shine on paper. Looking back on it, Rick Rude didn't have to do anything. I think a Lloyd to London contract, which is a fancy lawyer thing where it's like, took some bumps, took some ouchies in the ring, And like he's just like, hey, my job was to wrestle. I got beat up. I can't really wrestle anymore. And they're like, good, we'll give you money. Just don't wrestle. He's like, that's a good idea. And then he just stands in TV and just looks like a badass. We should put a second heart next to Rick Rude. Jeez, man. So good. So Dusty Rhodes, AJ, Dusty Rhodes. Once again, I don't know if you remember the angle, but Dusty Rhodes was. I'm wearing a Cody Rhodes t-shirt, by the way. So once again, I'm wearing a Cody Rhodes t-shirt. So like that would be a thing. And Dusty was in the ring. I want to say Scott Hall was involved for this angle as well. I want to say who was Dusty beefing with it at the time? Oh, I don't. I remember Dusty joining the NWO, and I was one of the happiest. Once again, I'm an old school pro wrestling fan. Let me tell you something about. Let me tell you about. I can't do a good Dusty without like really practicing for a little. I used to be able to do a better Dusty, and he is just one of the best of all time. Some of the old school stuff of Dusty. So Dusty was in the ring as one does, and he was talking to wrestler or whatever, and he was trying to defend him like, oh, the NWO is bad. I'm never, like we're gonna stay away from them, whatever. And then Dusty takes off his shirt to reveal an NWO shirt under his shirt and joins the NWO thusly because he was prepared. He was already in the NWO. He had the shirt on already. And yes, my NWO shirt is very faded. And I also agree with the second thing that AJ said earlier, that the Wolfpack is better than the NWO, because you will notice I am flying the black and red version of the shirt. I am wearing the NWO shirt under my shirt the whole time, but also that Dusty Rhodes was in the NWO, because that was the bit I was, unfortunately for AJ, gonna reference the whole time, so he was wrong. I was right. No, they're not wrong. Mistaken. No one's wrong here. Everyone just maybe didn't watch as enough wrestling as I did back then. We had my friends and I had two TVs going because the Monday Night Wars. So we'd have, WCW on this TV and the WWE, WWF at the time on this TV. So instead of flipping back and forth, could watch both at once. The Nielsen ratings must have got screwed. Once again, a heart next to Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. I had to take my Cody shirt off, which was good because I was getting warm. Why does half my chat involve me taking clothes off? What's up with that? Brian Adams is next on the list. Not the singer, but the wrestler. He was okay. He was Crush in WWF. I liked Crush. Once again, Brian Adams wasn't bad. I think he did things in WCW that were okay. It's kind of a dash. He's one of the heavies. He looks like a big imposing dude. It did not make sense, but I feel the same way about Ted DiBiase, unfortunately, about Vincent, about Mike Wall Street. The name Mike Wall Street I'm not remembering. I'm like, that's just IRS, but they didn't have the rights to IRS, and they didn't want to call Mike Rotunda his real name. Is Brian Adams the real name of Crush? Perhaps, because I'm thinking his name is Crush. Brian, he did okay. Once again, we're gonna go long. Anyone who's allegedly still the 5 viewers who I've retained the whole time, which I could get off the stream frozen, and it could be a million people. I could have Kevin Nash himself watching the podcast because I shouted his name out quite a many times. Brian Adams is unfortunately getting a dash. Scott Steiner, Big Papa Pump. We're just gonna go right there and put a heart next to it already. I feel like I would make a golden heart if I could. And he was the leader at some point. Once again, we're gonna print out paper from Wikipedia is really coming in clutch. It's right around here. Scott Steiner, I think, once again, he was leader for a little bit. That was a good angle. I like that better than Hogan leading. I would say that. He had the stage presence. He looked tough, intimidating. He looked crazy. Looked like he probably ate people for breakfast. I don't know what he was doing. I think it was steroids and cocaine. No, yeah, whatever. Kidding. I don't know if he was doing cocaine. Whatever. Definitely steroids, though. Scott Steiner was great. He had the stage presence. He had the attitude. He had the wrestling skill set. Even before that, as the Steiner brothers, I feel bad for Rick Steiner. I heard behind the scenes that Rick Steiner's pretty cool too, apparently. but like he never got to showcase that on character, so much on TV. So, I feel bad for Rick, but Rick's not on my list right now. Scott is. Scott's getting a heart. Move on. The Disciple. The Disciple, the Disciple, the Disciple. I feel like that was kind of cool for what it was. I'm gonna put a smiley. The Disciple, who was the disciple of Hogan. I guess if you're still gonna have Hogan, I found the Disciple more entertaining than Hogan. You know what? And now it's a good time. We're roughly 50 minutes in, and I might lose people at the top of the hour because I probably will go long, or maybe I'll just hurry up with the last few names. But there was something called the finger poke of doom that people talk about in pro wrestling. The finger poke of doom. There was the black and red part of the NWO. There was the split. And they didn't want to have anything to do with Hulk Hogan over there. And the other part of the NWO. And I just feel like the finger poke, which is apparently one of the worst booking decisions of all time, that would have Hulk Hogan use a move on Kevin Nash, which was a finger poke, and Kevin Nash would treat it like it was a real maneuver and go to the ring floor, go down for the count, and Hulk Hogan would pin him 1, 2, 3. Hogan's champion again. They would get up and not kiss. I was gonna say they would kiss. They didn't kiss. They might have did the too sweet, I think, and hugged. They didn't, unfortunately, kiss. That might have helped the angle. No, that wouldn't have helped the angle at all. You know what? Why it didn't help it? Because Hulk Hogan was in it. You know what would have helped that angle? If Kevin Nash and Scott All would have did that angle, WCW would still be in business to this day. I will die on that hill. If it was X-Pac coming back for some reason and doing that angle, that would have worked better. But I still say the hill I would really die on to this day is if they made Scott Hall world champion, maybe WCW would still be doing something right now. That's what I think about the Disciple. He's not Scott Hall. Lex Luger. Lex Luger was in the NWO. Lex Luger was one of the first to jump ship, actually, from WWF over to WCW. He was on the TV at the end of Nitro, and everyone's like, Lex Luger, the narcissist, oh my, is what people said. It was okay. Once again, like, in that kind of crew, we're just going to go cheat ahead here. Under that name was Sting, who was technically in NWO, and I think they were both in the black and red part. And Luger might have been in the white and black as well. Definitely black and red for Sting there. But the fact that they were real life friends, it's kind of like the clique within the clique. Once again, Hall and Nash were my boys. And I really like Sting. I like the fact he was dressed up like the Crow. So I like Sting so much. I'm gonna put a heart next to Sting. And because Sting is happy when Lex Luger is there, I'm gonna put a smiley face next to Lex Luger. But once again, Luger, I could have taken the narcissist in the WWF was a great character. I really like that. Unfortunately for Luger, I felt his whole WCW run for me kind of lackluster. Even when he became champion and everyone was happy, because he was like WCW's boy. Yeah, okay. Stevie Ray. Stevie Ray was in the NWO. I really always liked Booker T more than Stevie Ray. But Stevie Ray, I'm putting a dash next to Stevie. Sorry, Stevie. We're dashing you. We got to move on. Horace Hogan. I might put my first frowny face. I'm sorry. My real life frowny face, no offense, Horace, is with what, your uncle Terry? Your Uncle Terry named Hollywood Hogan? I don't like Hollywood Hogan. Hogan was my worst part of the NWO for me. And to all 5 viewers who are allegedly still watching this. So for me, Horace Hogan is just an extension of that. It's nepotism for like the worst part of something to make it even more worse. More worse. My grammar is getting emotional thinking about it. I don't like it. Not one bit. So for him, definitely put in a smiley face. And I'm going to have to drink to that. It's just water. I'm going to try to get drunk off water to try to understand why Horace Hogan was in my NWO at all. Disco Inferno. A lot of people think that Disco has the Marvin K. Mooney go away heat. Cody, I was going to stand up again and show you Cody Rhodes, but apparently I took Cody off and threw him, as one does. Yeah, Cody Rhodes and Disco Inferno not getting along on the X or the Twitter right now. I liked Disco in the NWO. I'm putting the heart. This is a controversial hot take, but when everyone's like, "Disco, what did you do?" Like, you're the best thing that you ever did was, riding off the coattails of your friends and whatever. People hate on. No, he was a solid hand. He was a solid wrestler. He was entertaining. The Dancing Fools with Alex Wright there was a great tag team. Disco could wrestle. I just think that Disco, he gets in trouble at the man, but in the NWO back then was amazing. I'm sorry if you guys didn't like it. Once again, I'm sorry again. We're gonna go long. I knew this was gonna happen to try to get to the pro wrestling. Is Jay going to be in the NWO question? We had to get to a lot of sub questions to answer that to fully understand. Do I belong in this group with the other people that are in it? But Disco definitely deserves to be in it. Oh geez. Good. We have 5 minutes left at the top of the hour. Once again, we are unfortunately going long. Maybe a good 10, 15 minutes until this is all appropriately taken care of. But David Flair was also in the NWO. And if you don't know who David Flair is, you know who Ric Flair is. Woo! Nature Boy. Yeah, and maybe Charlotte Flair, Charlotte's brother. Because Charlotte's going to be more famous than Rick eventually, right? Can we all agree upon that? Like, if she just keeps up doing it, once so talented. Once again, Ric Flair for the many, many years was on my pro wrestling, what do they call it? Mount Rushmore. I am a Ric Flair fan. I like playing Ric Flair in the old, like, wrestling games and putting on the figure four leg lock. I did like Rick. The problem is everyone liked Rick or didn't like Rick. Ric Flair is a rare. You play heel for a reason. They really wouldn't have babyface Rick. He did a really good job at it. And at a period of time, his son David was wrestling, and David had a lot of issues. They really threw him in to a lot of great storylines at the time, which is great. But I feel maybe he didn't feel 100% ready. He got like the imposter syndrome. I don't know. I wish I could ask David Flair his opinions and his thoughts on this. And just a moment of silence for David Flair. Yeah, no, I know a lot of other wrestlers have passed away on this list. There are a lot of other great wrestlers that I've definitely said who, I felt a certain way. But a lot of them, they had their time to shine, so to speak. Like I said, like Kurt Hennig was taken before our time, Rick Rude taken before our time. A lot of great wrestlers. Randy Savage taken before our time. You know what I'm saying? Like the list can go on and on and on. David Flair never got to show us he was a great wrestler. I believe he had it in him, but I think, like, unfortunately, the vibe I always got was just like he might have felt on screen. It came up. He might have been like a little bit like over his head on some of those angles. And I'm still putting a heart next to him. Just like my heart goes out so much to the whole situation that like he was only in the NWO for a little blip there. David Flair was. But like maybe it would have been better if he was in charge than Hogan. It's just what I'm saying. I don't know. It's a weird topic. I'm sorry, everyone. But once again, my thoughts go out to the Flair family. It's never long enough ago. Probably still bothers. Bret Hart. Bret Hart. Bret Hart. Bret Hart. Bret Hart was the leader of the NWO for a second. Mixed feelings once again. Oh, like I said earlier, to start off the stream to try to make it make sense. My boys, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, real life friends of Shawn Michaels here, who apparently on again, off again would have some real life issues with Bret the Hitman Hart. For any pro wrestling fans in the know, could talk about the Montreal Screwjob with the fact that even the reason that Bret Hart left the WWF to go to WCW was when he lost the championship, as one might lose, because the owner of the company just said, "Ring the bell." Basically, he never gave up. The lore would say, and he got very upset. That would have worked out really good. Maybe if they came in right away, he was in charge of the NWO. We took over. Like that would have made sense. There would have been some longevity. They made him in charge for a bit here. And yeah, I guess, I feel it's sad too. It's definitely not as sad as the David Flair thing. But Bret Hart suffered an injury. There was an infamous match there. He was fighting Goldberg, and Goldberg did one of those little kicky moves there, and it hit Bret on the head in real life. They didn't take it very good. and it gave Brett such a bad concussion he couldn't wrestle anymore. So imagine what would have happened, fam, if this bar could have kept going. Because once again, even though Bret Hart was never one of my favorite people, I feel a different way about Bret Hart as I did Hulk Hogan. So growing up, I'd feel the same. I liked Owen Hart. Owen's one of my favorites. R.I.P. Owen. There's so many wrestlers we could talk about. We are gonna go over time because we have a few more people on the list. A couple more, maybe only 10 minutes over time. So Bret Hart, I just felt like since as I was an Owen fan, my brother liked Bret, I liked Owen, so we'd have like their family rivalry would mirror our family rivalry, would be great. And then I too was a Shawn Michaels mark for so many years that I still like, if Shawn and Bret buried the hatchet first or whatever, but this is back where like, no, you could clearly see, you hear behind the scenes, Shawn and Bret are not cool. They do not like each other right now. And now Bret is being shown as the leader of the group with Shawn's friends. I'm sorry, Bret. I'm putting a sad face next to your leadership. I'm sorry. All right, once again, it is 5 p.m. for the alleged 5 current viewers that I have, even though that number I believe might be locked up in time. We're probably going another 5-10 minutes long. We have a couple more names on the list. Some that I'm peeking. We might actually go through this pretty quick here because it looks like we're basically at the end already. Jeff Jarrett's next. So, looking at this graph here, once again, that I printed off Wikipedia before the stream aired, we got the black little blurb of Bret Hart. Looks like they wanted him to be in charge of this new NWO, this NWO 2000 version over here. He unfortunately gets hurt, and it looks like maybe they sub in Jeff Jarrett, because there's not really Jeff Jarrett's the new leader of the NWO. Oh no, Virginia's calling me. They're saying I'm running long on my live stream. Well, that's weird. I don't know. Maybe it's probably a scam. Maybe they're giving me money, free money, for being so knowledgeable about pro wrestling. So Jeff Jarrett, in 2020 vision, hindsight is one of the things that like it worked really, really well for what it was, but it was definitely a pivot. So, and two, I felt wishy washy about Jeff Jarrett. I wish I would have known then what I knew now. Maybe I would have kept up with it. Because even in the WWF, he had his weird tights on, his little striped tights going on there. And the Double J things I liked, but it was being nerdy. Like they even like his angle in the WWF was he would sing or whatever. And then it would find out, like even behind the scenes in real life, where I think in the angle that it wasn't Jeff Jarrett singing, it was the Road Dogg singing, it was the Roadie. And guess what happened with the Roadie? He stopped hanging out with Jeff Jarrett and he joined the New Age Outlaws there with Billy Gunn, Mr. Ass himself. And who were they friends with in the storylines? Well, D-Generation X. That's right. That X-Pac, who is the same person that Six is from the NWO, Triple H, real life friends with Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels for a little bit. So these loose affiliations. So I don't know. It's very tough. So I feel like there's a part of my brain that really liked the Road Dogg always more than Jeff Jarrett. Sometimes that happens. You do such a good job in pro wrestling as a character that the funk just stays with you. So yeah, I don't know. Looking back on it though, he did a really good job. But I'm gonna put a box. I'm gonna put a square. Um, the Harris brothers, the twins, Ron Harris, Don Harris. Once again, they're extensions of Jarrett. I think that worked too. It was changing. They call it the same group, maybe too. Like it became lackluster for periods of time. Maybe it should have been called something else, but they were using the name brand recognition. The solid muscle though, having the twins to back up Jeff Jarrett. I'm not gonna put sad faces, but Dashy Boys, like it was okay. It was the same way that Ted DiBiase was okay. It's like it made sense in storyline. Of course, Jeff Jarrett's gonna have the twins in his version of the NWO. According to Who's Left, Scott Steiner's still in the NWO here. Makes sense. Scott Steiner maybe should have been in charge again. No offense to Jeff Jarrett. That might have been better for longevity. Just a storyline, name brand recognition for us as maybe fans of this product. Because looking back, Jeff Jarrett's so good now. I have to watch his Vice episodes, Dark Side of the Ring. I haven't seen yet. But yeah, Kevin Nash was still in the group. Scott Hall was still in the group. the Harris brothers. Rare, I think, unfortunately, Hall left right around here too. All right, and I think I might have some names. I don't know who they are. Midgeta, April Hunter, Tylene Buck, Pamela Paulshock, Shakira, Mark Johnson. Okay, I want to say most of, if not all of, is that entourage that followed around Scott Steiner, maybe? I We have members of the NWO on this printout here who I am not 100% sure who they are, frankly. As a really big pro wrestling nerd that remembers watching a lot of angles, maybe I felt was falling off around that time too. It was around the time 2000. Had a girlfriend who did not like the Attitude Era, surprisingly. There was a lot of shakies on the screen sometimes. A lot of certain angles, bra and panty matches and whatnot. You just so yeah, one of the names was Shakira, who is not the Hips Don't Lie artist of musical theme, which that would have been great. Once again, going back to the beginning, I think if it was Hall and Nash and musical artist Shakira as the third man of that angle, it would have made sense. What did I promise you guys? 5-10 minutes long. I did say the whole time I was going long. Danhausen merch. Once again, we're just gonna really quick. He's not in the NWO. Danhausen. Is he in the Knicks yet? Apparently, he's a wrestler. This is a shirt pre AEW, by the way. So this is a very, what does it say? Very injured, very evil shirt for Danhausen that I got before he was in AEW. Before he stopped being in AEW, now he's in the WWE, and everybody loves themselves some Danhausen. I do too. If once again I'm gonna will it out to the universe, if the WWE is ever foolish enough to go and reiterate the NWO now and try to make NWO money, they should make Danhausen in the NWO. Bring Kevin Nash out of retirement as the mouthpiece and have just him interact with Danhausen. Have it be like Kevin Nash's money instead of having Ted DiBiase like they had back in the 90s as this pretend person with money. Have Kevin Nash in real life. Just make sure he doesn't do that little pencil mustache thing he did when he came back and was fighting with CM Punk in that angle with Triple H that was it was lackluster. Okay, there's a couple other names allegedly on this list. Booker T. Once again, I think that is the WC, not the WC, the WWE version of it. Came back into it. My chart, I think it's not even on the chart. It's actually cut off. But he was on that. And once again, Shawn Michaels was one of the last people in the NWO. Once again, my childhood hero, HBK himself, the Heartbreak Kid, the showstopper, Mr. Entertainment himself, was in the NWO. So it's hard for me, as some guy doing a podcast, episode 8, to just say that who am I to be in the NWO? Well, I'm working on my muscles. I wrestled in middle school. My record was actually pretty good. I won more than half my matches. I think X Factor part, not like X Factor like X Pac and Six, but just like entertainment value, just as a mouthpiece and being able to probably take a bump or two. I might be more entertaining, unfortunately for them, as like half the names on this list. Therefore, without further ado, I think I should be in the NWO. All right. We're gonna put it upside down. Very good angle. That's great. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I'd like to thank you so much for being a part of this pro wrestling special live featuring myself, Jay Bossert, misalignment specialist, that now is officially a member of the New World Order. New World Order. Too sweet. All right, yeah, thanks for going over to my stream, everyone. I'm gonna try to stop the YouTube version and the other version at the same time and click some buttons. Apparently, it's making it worse for myself. That's nice. Very good. We're gonna stop recording. Once again, thank you for everybody that is here today. I heard Max Langley is getting roasted later this evening, so if there's anybody left watching my stream, make sure that you watch that. Oh, I'm the O in the New World Order. That's kind of cool. You can do that. So once again, I wanted to say hashtag subscribe. We don't do that on LinkedIn, do we? Just have a LinkedIn day and too sweet in the chat. Too sweet. Yes, I would like to stop the stream.